Hey, let's talk about some books that I read. Hi, my name's Elizabeth. I'm a bookseller and a book buyer, but also a book reader. And that's what we're talking about today. I am firmly in the middle of a chronic illness flare, so the energy that we're bringing today is the energy I'm bringing to my real life. But that doesn't mean we can't talk about books. First up in this episode is more Agatha Christie. You know that I've been reading through the Poirots. This is number 8, Peril at End House. I skipped the one before this, number 7, which is Black Coffee, because it's a screenplay and or play. Screenplay? What is the word I want? Script. Aforementioned chronic illness flare. And I think it has been novelized, but I wasn't interested. Anyway, Peril at End House. We have Poirot and his sidekick. Oh, Nick, what's his surname? Hastings. On holiday at a house by the sea, or a hotel by the sea, and they meet a young lady while they're just sitting in the grass, and a bullet nearly hits her just out of nowhere, this bullet. So Poirot takes it upon himself to proclaim her the victim of an attempted shooting, because why would people be shooting at anyone else? And determines that he's going to prevent her being murdered. So the whole story is Poirot and Hastings, of course, mainly Poirot and Hastings narrating the tale of how Poirot is saving this young woman from being murdered. And I will tell you no more than that, because the benefit of reading them cold is you don't have expectations of how done it and who done it and why done it. And it's also, of course, the charm of Poirot interacting with people and his hubris and his cleverness and how he solves the mystery. And so in that respect, obviously I can't give you any more details than that. Christie with this one did surprise me in who the attempted murderer is. I won't say if there were murders or not. I liked that. She's still playing with the form of the genre, and I do enjoy that they're all, even though they're all the same, they're all a little bit different every time. And I didn't mind this installment. It was interesting and more interesting than the previous one, which was the Blue Train, because that one was just convoluted. But this one, when we had the explanation, I was like, yeah, I can see that. So more Poirot. Next up is one that I tackled simply because I paid money for it and I thought I better give it a go. It is The Book of War, Libraries and Readers in an Age of Conflict by Andrew Pettegree. Now, he wrote a book about the history of the library that I enjoyed, so I did pick this one up, even though I wasn't particularly interested in the war aspect. This one, it's non-fiction, obviously. The call number here is 002.0, which is the book category. I did actually really enjoy this. This was published in 2023, so it's not that old. And it is a overview of the way that books were used and survived conflict. So in particular, we're looking at World War I and II, but it does go a bit earlier than that and it does go a bit later than that. Let's get your facts straight, woman. So it's got aspects of how books and published papers were used in war, from things like maps and science, and how when World War II, particularly when the war was declared, all the German published science, and Germany was the centre of science journals, stopped being exported. And so places like the United States in particular had to scramble for scientific journals and scientific publications because they didn't have access to the German ones anymore. But then also the way that people read or didn't read on the home front. There's lots of diary entries. There was a journal project during World War II, must have been, with the bombing in England. And I don't know if it's the rest of the UK, but definitely England, where people on the home front were asked to record their lives. in writing, and lots of those entries say, I want to read a book and I'm not able to read a book. You know, it's too stressful to find comfort in a book. And I think many of us felt that in COVID, where it was just so much was going on, can't concentrate on a novel. And that's reflected in the diaries of World War II as well. But at the same time, books were being sent to the front, to the soldiers, to give them something to read. The paperback form came up at this time, so that made it cheaper to produce and cheaper to distribute, especially from America over to the front. So that's really interesting, the way that war influenced literal cardboard-backed books. The types of books that were being sent to the front and the ones that were actually being read at the front. I didn't realise that the Forsyte Saga was one of the huge books that went through soldiers in Europe, and A Tree Grows in Brooklyn as well for the American soldiers. That's just a couple of the ones that were really, really latched onto. And I can see the Forsyte Saga because it is just a soap opera. I love it. And then through to the Cold War and the CIA Book Club, which there's another book called, I think, the CIA Book Club. Let me check. Yeah, the CIA Book Club, The Best Kept Secret of the Cold War by Charlie English. I'm keen to read that one. It's on my wish list. So ultimately a little bit dry, but very digestible. I think if you are interested in the history of books and reading, this is one to add to your brain canon. But as you know, that's something that I'm interested in, and I realise it's very niche. Although not that niche if I'm getting like a trade paperback in a popular bookstore. Then I reread the Empusium by Olga Tokarczuk. This was published in 2024 in English. I don't know when. I think it did come out 2024 in Polish as well, which is the language that Tokarczuk writes in. I don't know that I reviewed this the first time that I read it. When it came out, it was sold as a retelling of The Magic Mountain by Thomas Mann, which I read in preparation for this and I loved. I think about that book at least once a week. It's really stuck with me. And this did not when I read it. I was disappointed actually. And that's on me and my expectation of it being a retelling of The Magic Mountain. It's similar. It takes the same initial premise, which is that somebody with tuberculosis travels to the mountains in Germany, in that region, to a sanatorium to recover or not from tuberculosis, which is the premise of The Magic Mountain as well. And that happens here. And then it goes a completely different, weird, feminist, magical realism direction. And you know what? It's great. On reread, where I knew what was happening and I knew that it wasn't The Magic Mountain, I had a really good time, and that's why I reread it, because I knew that I needed to give it a second chance. And also because I had just DNF'd, what's it called? House of Day, House of Night by Tokarczuk, which is an older work of hers recently translated to English. And I couldn't with that because of trigger warning things like the dog dies and cannibalism, and those two are linked. So it wasn't for me at the time. Rereading the Empusium really satisfied that itch for Tokarczuk. Need to specify that this was translated by Antonia Lloyd-Jones, who translated Drive Your Plough Over the Bones of the Dead, which is brilliant. And translators should always get their credit because they've rewritten the book. So, like I said, this starts out with our narrator, Mieci Suave. That's off the top of my head. Coming up to the sanatorium. Can't afford to live in that actual sanatorium, so stays in like a B&B, which is catered, and then goes over to the sanatorium for treatment every day. They have the treatment at the sanatorium, and then they come back to the B&B, and there's a whole bunch of men, it's all men, come here and they get drunk every night on this treatment, liquor made from mushrooms, and they get drunk and they talk about how women are inferior and what even are they on about? The men saying, what even are the women on about? And Mieci Suave stays silent in this because he's not sure if he's comfortable with that kind of conversation, but he's also not sure if he's comfortable with his own body and being a he. So I'm not going to spoil it from there. It does go into some deep folklore stuff, like I said, with magical realism. The things that they warn you about in folktales come true, and it's horror in that respect, and I had a great time. I'm not sorry that I gave it a reread because I needed to give it another go. Next is one I was chomping at the bit for, and that is A Drop of Corruption by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is the second in the, what are you calling it, series, Shadow of the Leviathan, and this was published in 2025. Robert Jackson Bennett's the first one, The Tainted Cup, won the Hugo in 2025, I think. And that's how I discovered it. And I raced through it, and I needed this book immediately afterwards, and I had to wait for the reprinting, which sucked. Anyway, we're here now. We read it. We loved it. So Anna and Din are investigators in this fantasy world. Anna can't see. Well, she's so heightened to sensory input that she wears a blindfold to diminish that level of input. And so Din is her literal eyes, does the groundwork of investigating crimes and takes the evidence to Anna, and they solve the case together. Din also has enhancements where, with the aid of a scent anchor, like sniffing a scent, will anchor a memory forever, and so is struggling with the can never unsee aspect of the enhancement they've been given to have this job as an investigator. And we discover more of the backstories of the two of them, and it delves more into these enhancements and how they're harvested, which is from the Leviathans, which are big scary monsters that attack the land and must be defended against. But also they need the Leviathans to distill their essences to make these enhancements and stuff that make the world run. And so this goes deeper into that, into societies that don't hold with these enhancements, don't want to be part of the empire, and the way that regular people feel about the whole business, and just more in depth, more world building, but also a mystery to solve. And I had such a good time. I instantly pre-ordered the third one, and I have to wait all the way till August to get it. But I highly recommend, if you're looking for a mystery, like a crime mystery, but in a fantasy world that is doing really different things with world building, highly recommend you get on this. It won the Hugo for a reason, and it's because it's doing something good. This is literally the only fantasy I'm excited to read this year. I'm not in the fantasy mood at all, but this is doing something good. And finally, this was my last book that I read in 2025. This is The Dead of Winter, The Demons, Witches and Ghosts of Christmas. The call number is 394.2663. Christmas. Every time I look up what these categories are, they're so obvious, I could probably just guess. Anyway, this was gifted from my mum previous Christmas, and it got here after Christmas, so I held off and read it in this season. And it is non-fiction, by Sarah Clegg. Sorry, I should have said that. It is a little look, like it's quite a slim book. It's a look at the traditions of European Christmases. Like, they're often horror-based, folklore-based. Clegg has gone around a couple of places in Europe. She's done some things in England and Wales, I think. Sweden, or somewhere in Scandinavia to do with St. Lucia. She went to Venice for Carnival, and somewhere in Germany, I think, as well, for experiencing these folklore-based traditions that are around the time of Christmas. None of them are Christmas-based. None of them are Christian-based. They're all local folk traditions, and the way that they've evolved, so that stuff has come from continental Europe over to England, and why some places have St. Lucia, why some places have Sinterklaas, how carnival in Venice is linked to all of this, and the way that it's morphed into other traditions in other places. So that was super interesting because none of those traditions are part of my Christmas. Interesting read to help place mainly the media that I consume in context. So looking at things set in Europe in Christmas time and what are they talking about? It's in this book. Having never experienced a winter Christmas or those winter festivals, being that I'm from Australia and have spent all my Christmases and all my winters in Australia, I found that interesting. Back with a fresh battery to say that's 5 things that I read. That's the last of what I read in 2025. Thank you for hanging out with me. And if you have suggestions of things I should add to my TBR, please let me know because I'm always influenceable about books.